Before we begin, take a moment to think about this. The next time you see a watermelon in a market, remember that it did not get there by accident. Behind every watermelon is a farmer who spent months planting, watering, waiting, and hoping for a successful harvest. Today, we follow that journey. From the field to the market. From hard work to profit. And from a tiny three-wheeled truck to an incredible load that seems almost impossible to carry. Let's discover what it really takes to turn a harvest into income. The sun has not risen yet. The watermelon field is quiet. The air is cool. For a few moments, everything feels peaceful. But the farmers are already awake. Today is not an ordinary day. Today will decide whether months of hard work turn into money or disappointment. At the edge of the field sits a small three-wheeled truck. It looks old. It looks tired. And it looks far too small for what is about to happen. Around it, hundreds of ripe watermelons wait to be harvested. Each one carries a story. A story of planting. A story of waiting. A story of hoping that the weather would stay kind. One farmer walks toward the truck and places his hand on the side. He knows this little vehicle has a huge job ahead. Every watermelon in this field must reach the market. If they stay here too long, quality drops. If quality drops, prices fall. And if prices fall, months of work can disappear in a single day. The farmers cannot afford mistakes. Not today. Slowly, workers begin gathering across the field. Baskets appear. Knives appear. The harvest is about to begin. But one question hangs over everyone. Can this tiny truck really carry such a massive load? Many people would look at it and laugh. Many would say it is impossible. Yet for these farmers, there is no other choice. Sometimes success comes from trusting what little you have. And sometimes the people with the least are forced to take the biggest risks. The first watermelon is finally cut from the vine. Then another. Then another. Within minutes, the field begins to change. And what the farmers discover next is far bigger than they expected. The harvest has begun. Watermelons are coming off the vines one after another. But before this field became full of fruit, it looked very different. Months ago, there was nothing here. Just empty land. Dry soil. And a farmer carrying a bag of seeds. Back then, there were no guarantees. No one knew if the season would be good. No one knew if the rain would arrive at the right time. And no one knew if these tiny seeds would become a successful harvest. Still, the farmers planted them. Day after day, they returned to the field. They watered young plants. They removed weeds. They watched the sky. Too much rain could cause problems. Too little rain could destroy everything. Every morning brought a new worry. Every evening ended with another prayer for a better tomorrow. As the weeks passed, small green fruits began to appear. Then they grew larger. And larger. The field slowly transformed into a sea of watermelons. But growing them was only half the battle. A watermelon has value only when someone buys it. That is why today matters so much. Every fruit in this field represents time. Money, effort, and hope. A farmer bends down and lifts another watermelon. He smiles. Not because the work is finished, because he knows how hard it was to reach this moment. Many people see only the fruit. They never see the months behind it. Sometimes the hardest work happens long before anyone notices. And those quiet struggles deserve to be remembered too. The workers continue moving through the field. Soon, watermelons begin piling up everywhere. The harvest is moving faster than expected. And as the pile grows larger and larger, a new problem begins to appear. The tiny truck waiting nearby may not be big enough for what is coming next. The field is no longer quiet. Voices echo across the rows. Workers move quickly from one watermelon to the next. What looked like a normal field only hours ago now feels completely different. Everywhere they look, ripe watermelons are waiting. But not every watermelon is ready to harvest. The farmers must choose carefully. One worker taps a watermelon with his fingers. A deep sound comes back. He nods. This one is ready. Another watermelon is left behind. It needs more time. A small mistake can cost money. Harvest too early, and the fruit may not taste good. Harvest too late, and quality can begin to fall. The farmers cannot afford either problem. One by one, the watermelons are cut from the vines. Each fruit is lifted carefully. Each fruit is placed in growing piles across the field. Soon, those piles begin turning into mountains. The workers stop for a moment and look around. There are watermelons everywhere. Far more than they expected. The harvest is better than anyone hoped. That should be good news. But good news sometimes creates new problems. The larger the harvest, the harder it becomes to move. The farmers know every watermelon sitting in the field is money waiting to be earned. But money cannot be earned until the fruit reaches the market. The pace becomes faster. Workers carry more. The piles grow higher. The truck waits nearby. Small. Silent. Almost hidden beside the mountain of fruit. A young worker laughs when he looks at it. Another farmer shakes his head. The difference between the truck and the harvest is becoming impossible to ignore. And for the first time today, some of the farmers begin asking the same question. What if there are simply too many watermelons? Because the next step will push the little three-wheeled truck closer to its limit than ever before. The harvest keeps growing. Every few minutes, another pile appears. Then another. Then another. The field is now covered with watermelons. The farmers know they cannot wait any longer. It is time to start loading. The small three-wheeled truck is pulled closer. Standing beside it, the truck looks even smaller than before. One farmer stares at the mountain of fruit and laughs. Another farmer does not laugh at all. He knows what is at stake. If they make too many trips, they will lose valuable time. If they load too much, they risk damaging the truck. Neither choice feels safe. The first watermelons are lifted. Then 10. Then 20. Then dozens more. The truck bed slowly disappears beneath the growing load. Workers move carefully. Nobody wants to drop a fruit. Every watermelon represents money. Every watermelon represents weeks of work. The weight keeps increasing. The tires begin sinking deeper into the ground. The suspension lowers little by little. Some workers glance at each other. The truck is already carrying more than it normally would. But the harvest pile still looks enormous. A farmer wipes sweat from his face. We still have a lot left. Nobody answers. Everyone can see it. The truck is filling faster than expected. Yet the field still seems full. The farmers gather beside the vehicle. They begin discussing their next move. Should they stop loading? Or should they risk adding more? Making another trip would cost time. But pushing the truck too far could cost everything. Sometimes farming is not about choosing the perfect option. Sometimes it is about choosing the least dangerous one. The workers stand quietly for a moment. Then one farmer points toward the remaining pile. He has an idea. An idea that could save them time. Or create a much bigger problem. And moments later, they decide to load even more watermelons onto the already overloaded truck. The decision has been made. The farmers are not stopping. More watermelons are carried toward the truck. One after another, they are lifted into place. The truck is already full. Everyone can see it. But the remaining pile in the field is still too large. Making another trip would take time. And time is something farmers never have enough of during harvest season. So they keep loading. A worker places another watermelon on top. Then another. The truck sinks a little lower. The tires press deeper into the soil. The weight is becoming impossible to ignore. One farmer circles the truck slowly. He checks the load from every angle. Nothing can fall during the journey. A single watermelon rolling off the truck would be a loss. 10 watermelons falling off could erase a large part of the day's earnings. The workers begin tying the load tightly. Ropes are pulled. Knots are checked. Then checked again. Nobody wants to take chances. Months of work now sit on this small machine. The truck looks less like a vehicle and more like a moving mountain of fruit. Some people passing by stop and stare. A few shake their heads. Others smile and laugh. They cannot believe such a small truck is expected to carry so much weight. But the farmers are not laughing. This harvest feeds families. This harvest pays bills. This harvest decides whether the season was worth the effort. Sometimes people only see the fruit. They never see the pressure behind it. And if you've ever worked hard for something, you know how heavy that pressure can feel. Finally, the last rope is secured. The truck is ready. Or at least, it has to be. The driver climbs into his seat. The engine starts. Everyone watches. No one speaks. The overloaded truck slowly begins to move. But just as it reaches the edge of the field, something happens that makes every farmer hold their breath. The truck slows near the edge of the field. Everyone freezes. For a moment, nobody knows what will happen. The load shifts slightly. A few watermelons wobble near the top. The driver stops immediately. The workers rush over. They tighten the ropes again. They push the watermelons back into place. Nobody wants to imagine what could happen if the load breaks apart on the road. After a few tense minutes, the driver tries again. This time, the truck keeps moving. Slowly. Very slowly. The farmers watch until it disappears from the field. Now comes the hardest part. Getting the harvest to market. The road ahead is rough. Small holes cover the path. Every bump shakes the truck. Every turn tests the ropes. The driver keeps both hands tight on the wheel. He cannot afford a mistake. Behind him sits the result of months of work. Not boxes. Not cargo. Not supplies. Watermelons. Hundreds of them. And each one represents money the farmers have not earned yet. The truck climbs a small hill. The engine struggles. The speed drops. For a few seconds, it feels like the truck might stop completely. But somehow it keeps going. The driver smiles. Only for a moment. There is still a long way to travel. Along the road, people stop and stare. Some point at the truck. Others pull out their phones. The load looks unbelievable. It seems impossible that such a small vehicle is carrying so much weight. But the truck continues forward. Meter by meter. Minute by minute. Finally, the market begins to appear in the distance. The farmers feel relief. The hardest part should be over. Or so they think. Because reaching the market does not guarantee success. A truck full of watermelons means nothing if customers do not buy them. And as they pull into the crowded market, they discover something they were not expecting at all. Today, they are not the only farmers trying to sell watermelons. The truck finally reaches the market. The farmers breathe a sigh of relief. The harvest arrived safely. But their relief does not last long. As they look around, they see something troubling. Other farmers are already there. And they are selling watermelons too. Rows of trucks line the market. Stacks of watermelons sit everywhere. Some sellers are shouting prices. Others are already serving customers. The competition is much stronger than expected. One farmer looks at the nearly full truck and stays quiet. He knows the truth. A successful harvest means nothing until someone pays for it. The driver parks the truck. The farmers quickly arrange the watermelons. They wipe away dirt. They turn the best fruit toward the front. Now all they can do is wait. Minutes pass. A few people walk by. Some stop and look. Others keep moving. The farmers try not to show their worry. But inside, the pressure is growing. Then the first customer approaches. He picks up a watermelon, turns it over, taps it gently, and asks the question every farmer wants to hear. How much? The farmers smile. The first sale is always important. Not because of the money. Because it brings hope. Soon another customer arrives. Then another. Slowly, people begin gathering around the truck. The farmers start weighing watermelons. Money begins changing hands. The day finally feels alive. But there is still a problem. The truck is carrying far more watermelons than the first few customers can buy. Many fruits remain. And the sun is already climbing higher. The farmers know they need sales to move faster. Because every hour matters. Every unsold watermelon is a risk. And just when they begin wondering how they will attract more buyers, an unexpected customer walks toward the truck. What happens next changes the entire pace of the day. The unexpected customer walks straight to the truck. He does not ask for one watermelon. He does not ask for two. Instead, he looks at the pile and says something that instantly grabs everyone's attention. I need a large order. The farmers look at each other. For a moment, they think they heard him wrong. Then he points toward several watermelons. Start with those. The mood changes immediately. Workers begin weighing fruit faster. Money changes hands. The large sale attracts attention. People nearby start walking over. Some customers stop to see what is happening. Others begin checking the watermelons for themselves. Within minutes, the quiet truck becomes one of the busiest spots in the market. The farmers barely have time to rest. One customer leaves. Another arrives. Then another. Watermelons that looked impossible to sell this morning are disappearing one after another. The pile grows smaller. The smiles grow bigger. The driver stands beside the truck and watches. Only a few hours ago, he was worried about reaching the market. Now he has a different problem. Can they keep up with demand? The workers move quickly. They weigh fruit. Collect payments. Answer questions. Carry watermelons. The rush does not stop. Sometimes success arrives slowly. Then all at once. And when it finally comes, you must be ready for it. Many people give up just before things begin to change. Imagine working for months and quitting on the very day your reward arrives. Some journeys deserve patience. The truck that once looked overloaded now looks almost empty. Only a small number of watermelons remain. The farmers can finally see the finish line. But one question still has not been answered. After all the work, after all the risk, after all the waiting, how much money did this harvest actually make? The answer is only a few sales away. The market rush is finally slowing down. The truck that arrived carrying a mountain of watermelons now looks almost empty. Only a few fruits remain. The farmers sit down for the first time all day. Their legs are tired. Their backs hurt. Their clothes are covered with dust. But nobody complains. They are thinking about only one thing. The numbers. One farmer opens a small notebook. Another begins counting the cash collected throughout the day. The money is placed in neat piles. Everyone watches closely. This is the moment they have been waiting for since the first seed went into the ground. The counting continues. Sale after sale. Customer after customer. The total keeps growing. A smile appears on one farmer's face. Then another. The harvest was not perfect. There were transportation costs. There were market fees. There were months of expenses before a single watermelon could be sold. But even after all those costs, the numbers are looking good. Very good. The pressure that followed them all season begins to disappear. Slowly, quietly, one farmer leans back and lets out a deep breath. For the first time in months, he feels lighter. Not because farming is easy. Because today's risk was worth taking. The overloaded truck made it. The customers came. The harvest sold. And now the hard work is finally turning into income. Many people see a watermelon and think it is just fruit. They never see the early mornings, the long days, the worries, the sacrifices. Sometimes the strongest people carry their struggles so quietly that nobody notices. And sometimes their victories deserve to be noticed too. The final numbers are almost ready. The farmers look at each other. They know this day will be remembered. But before they celebrate, there is one final lesson this harvest is about to teach. A lesson every new farmer should hear before planting their very first seed. The sun is beginning to set. The market is quieter now. Most of the watermelons are gone. The truck that arrived carrying a huge load is almost empty. The farmers stand beside it and look at what remains. Just a few hours ago, they were worried. Would the truck survive the journey? Would customers buy the harvest? Would months of work turn into profit? Now they finally have their answers. The harvest was a success. Not because everything went perfectly. Not because farming was easy. But because they refused to quit when things became difficult. The truth is, watermelon farming is not only about growing fruit. It is about making decisions. It is about taking risks. It is about solving problems when things do not go as planned. The farmers think back to the season. The planting. The waiting. The weather. The harvest. The overloaded truck. The long journey. The busy market. Every step carried uncertainty. Yet every step mattered. A good harvest alone is not enough. The fruit must be moved. It must be protected. It must be sold. That is the lesson hidden inside this story. Many new farmers focus only on growing crops. The most successful farmers learn how to move those crops from the field to the customer. That is where the real business begins. The driver climbs back into the little three-wheeled truck. It looks small again. Almost ordinary. But today it carried more than watermelons. It carried months of hope. Months of effort. Months of sacrifice. And somehow, it carried them all the way to success. The next time you see a watermelon at a market, remember this journey. Because behind every fruit is a farmer who took a chance. And behind every successful harvest is a story that almost nobody sees. Some stories deserve to be remembered, not forgotten. If this journey taught you something new about farming, share it with someone who has never seen the hard work behind a harvest. And with that, the tiny truck begins its journey home, leaving behind an empty truck bed, a successful market day, and a lesson that will stay with these farmers long after the season ends.